Hello, everybody. Let me add Miss Sandy. Here we go. I apologize, I have to eat a cough drop. Hello, how are you today?
Figured it out.
Hooray!
Nice to meet
Great. It's great to meet you. My name's Patricia Dunn. You know me as Patsy on Facebook. But yes, it's wonderful to meet with you. I apologize if I drink water and I have a cough drop. My children decided to share. So
you.
not feeling very good, but
Oh no.
anyway. Yeah, cold. They got a nasty cold. My brother got married last weekend, so they got sick right before, and I was like, no. My son was the ring bearer, my daughter was the flower girl. Luckily, they got better.
Mm-hmm.
And then after the wedding,
It's kind of nice though to get a cold and not immediately think it's COVID.
yes, yes, and it was yes, very much so. Um, yeah, I hope that settles down. I hope that
Yeah,
because I feel like COVID is still like in the back of
it's
everyone's head, but
pretty rare
anyway.
these days. So
Now it's slowed down a lot. Now it's not like terrifying like it was before where everyone, was not sure what to do and how to handle it. And I mean, I guess we're not 100% of that anyway, but anyway. So I'm so excited about today because Sandi Schwartz is you say author and journalist for eco awareness. Is that a good title? Is that how you want to?
no, environmental author and journalist.
Environmental. Okay.
I talk
So,
environmental topics, but the book that addresses a lot of the creative arts and
mhm,
the mental health piece.
mhm,
That is a term, and we'll talk about. I kind of created called eco happiness. So it's
yes.
really the idea of how nature can help us feel better, happier and calmer, and looking at like positive psychology methods.
Yes. Yes. And I think that's really important because, this month is Mental Health Awareness Month. And so I thought that'd be a really good thing to talk about because, as I work with a lot of artists and they're all in different stages of their creative journey or their creative, I guess, profession.
Mm-hmm.
So some are very established, some are just kind of starting to figure out
Mm-hmm.
what exactly they want to do and what they want to focus on, what their style is. So everyone's kind of in their own pathway. And I thought, regardless of what stage you're in, as your own, entrepreneur, you're doing your own work, everyone has stresses, everyone has moments of like, they always say imposter syndrome and like, things like that happen that really, really will stress you out.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, wow, this is a great idea because any help, any ideas to help with combat that, especially if you go outside, and you do certain things, I thought that'd be a really great thing to talk about. So, now you are based out of, was it Florida or New Jersey, or I couldn't tell where do you bounce back and forth?
Yeah, mostly. Well, we go depending on the school year. So I grew up in
Mm,
New Jersey and then spent 11 years in the DC area. It's where
okay.
college and everything. And then we've been in Florida, South Florida for, oh my gosh,
Mhm.
16 years. And that's where we're raising
Yeah.
kids. And then every summer we go back to the Jersey Shore for any
Mm,
of you who are familiar with those terms. And so, yeah,
yeah.
we're back and forth based on the school year. So, and it gets so
Gotcha.
hot and you can't enjoy the shores much in Florida, and we can get a little bit better outside time if we go up north.
Yeah. So I was raised in Florida. So I've been in Florida my whole life. And so there's a lot of people, we call them snowbirds, where they go back and forth and back and forth. I don't think that necessarily applies to you since you, are back and forth for I'm assuming for your kids and, the seasons, everything. But retirees, I think, are more people we call snowbirds.
Yeah,
But
Florida now.
um, I'm sorry.
Are you in Florida now?
Oh yeah, I'm in Orlando area. So Central Florida.
Oh, right. Okay, so I'm not too far from like West Palm Beach, so we're not that far
Oh,
from each other. How cool!
there you go. Um, so some questions that I had for you, you talk about on your website, which is great, by the way. If I'll link that on this interview when I'm done. You had talked about, like the healing powers of nature and how to incorporate that into your life. So I didn't know if you wanted to expand on that and give us some background for that.
Yeah. So what's really interesting about
Excuse me.
nature and art and mental health, like all of that
Hmm.
fine, is that, you know, as like you said, artists and creators, I mean, I'm a writer, so we're creators.
Hmm. Yep.
We spend a lot of time, sometimes, well, at least I do with the screen time. I guess artists, that depends on what medium you're doing.
Yeah.
But so, yeah, you have your kind of like personal stress, business stress. But what's really incredible about being an artist is so much of nature inspires creativity, and
Hmm.
art,
Yes.
much of art, you know, is that we're focusing on. And I'm in a hobbyist amateur with watercolor and a few other, you know, trying to do some drawing, and I enjoy it. You know, it's I mean, art alone, there's so many great benefits with flow and mindfulness
Hmm.
and distraction and, you know, self-care,
Yeah.
you know, all of that. And so what I did is I took something like creative arts and I looked at it through a nature lens. And
Hmm.
so, you know, this is very multifaceted. So,
Hmm.
right. So why is nature, so we know art is healing.
Yes.
Why is nature healing? I mean, a lot of it is because it's such a multi-sensory experience, which artists
Hmm.
can understand a little
Yes.
more than maybe, you know, others. But you have the colors,
Hmm.
and, you know, the color psychologist experts have found that blues and greens tend to be the most soothing colors, and that's what you primarily see in nature, of course. If you're going to paint your baby's room, or you know, a toddler that's not sleeping, you know, go for the muted um, blues, greens, quiet them down. Don't
Yes.
put red,
Yes.
orange, and yellow. um, you have sounds, and,
Hmm.
you know, the studies show that one of the most calming sounds is bird song. And
Oh,
there was even a study that compared like a human voice meditation app to bird song, and everybody,
really?
yeah, and they study, you know, the cortisol levels and how, you know,
Yeah.
both the physical changes and then anecdotal, you know, how people
Yeah.
feel. And yeah, you know, that was the nature sound,
Hmm.
and it doesn't have to be live, you know, it could be recorded. But
I love ocean waves. That's it for me. Like that white noise,
yes,
that calms me right down.
that's, well, water. And what's
Yes.
interesting about water, and water itself has so many benefits, from like the way, you know, the color, the
Mhm.
sound, the movement, the like the way the sun sparkles on it, the ripples.
Yeah,
It's just so meditative.
absolutely.
Yeah, and you know, they really think that the researchers think a lot of it has to do because of the way, you know, we are created, and we're in the womb, and we're immersed in water, and so
Mm.
to that swooshing sound, and we're,
Yeah,
but, you know, a lot.
that's a very interesting. And I see I appreciate what you're saying too about it being like a sensory process because my I was curious to talk to you because I have many artists on Crafter that do landscapes, really beautiful paintings of art around them. And I've interviewed a lot of them, and many of them have said, oh, I like to go out in nature and get inspiration from my walk or from just my backyard or wherever they are. If they go on a trip and they're outside, then they bring that home and they're like, wow, I really enjoyed that experience, and then they recreate it as art. And I just thought, wow, that's fantastic. I know Diane, she's one of our artists. She talked about potentially doing a retreat for artists outside
Mm-hmm.
where everyone brings all their things outside and they paint outdoors. So I'm like, that sounds amazing, so I was very curious to learn more about.
Yeah, I last year I did some plein air painting, which is
Mhm.
very challenging, but it's amazing. You know, I mean, again, I'm like an amateur. I go see what these other artists are doing, and I'm so impressed. But you know, the idea that you're, you know, instead of just using like a photograph, you're
Mhm.
standing outside, and so you're getting just so many benefits from being there.
Right. And there are challenges, obviously, of doing artwork outside, depending on how the weather is. But at least, you are getting that inspiration literally right away, and you being, all the calming effects that come with being outside as well, if you want to just enjoy nature, you know what I mean? And all the benefits of that. It's nice to just be able to sit outside. There's times where I'm really stressed out. All I do is I just go sit on my patio. You know,
Yeah,
that's all I do.
I kind of craving that, and I left my computer and I sat outside on the balcony. And my daughter, a lot of people always ask me, what do you guys spend a lot of outside time together as a family? I said, honestly, at this point, I have a 10-year-old and a 14-year-old. Everyone has their own, thing they really enjoy outside. And my daughter,
Right.
she loves to go into the backyard, on her patio or table, and she'll draw or paint for hours,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
relaxes her and gets her going. So, everybody thing. Even if you even if you have to bring your computer outside, I still think it's better
Yes.
than not.
I've taken my laptop outside, done interviews outside, and I love my children, but sometimes I want some space and I want to be outside by myself. You play inside, mom needs a minute. Like just so
Right.
yeah. No, it was funny. Yesterday I had a moment like that where I was just really like the day was stressful and I go, okay, mom's just gonna sit on the patio. And when I tell you that the wall is adjacent, like I had the screen door, right, closed. My children are sitting at the kitchen table. I am sitting in a swing. I can see them. I could get up in 2 steps. I touch them, right? Mom, we need to be with you. They're 3 and 5. Mom, no, we want to go outside now. So then they are running around. I'm like, just go outside and play. Like I have a fenced backyard. I go, just go outside. I need a minute. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
The fresh air. I take a lot of walks. I find that my creative juices get flowing the best either on a bike ride by myself or a walk. And I've always been kind of a solo exerciser. Like I know a
Yeah.
lot of people like have to have an exercise buddy or go to group
Yeah.
classes. And for me, it's like a combination of fitness and mindfulness, because I don't also
Yeah.
like to just sit and meditate. So it's like,
Yeah.
and then it helps me really with creativity. I've written some articles and blog posts in my head as I've been walking. And then also, you see when I was really doing a lot more watercolor painting, I would,
Mhm.
have my phone with me and I would go for a walk, and you start to see everything differently, like the
Mhm.
colors of the flowers, the
Yeah.
tree bark, the moss, the clouds. I mean, everything. And then you're just like, I don't know, the shadows. It just really taught me, art has taught me to really see the world differently in a more mindful and, I don't know. Almost hard to put.
It's all the detail. I think that's what I admire about a lot of the members on Crafter, because I'll look through their posts and their artwork. It's all the small details,
Mm,
you know, things that you may not think about otherwise.
mm,
You know what I mean? Like, and you see them and you're like, oh wow, that's really pretty. Reflections in water, like you were talking about
mm,
before, or the way the light hits something, or you know, it does make a piece of artwork just that next level, I guess, which is really nice. And so you may not necessarily see that if you don't get inspiration from, maybe that's not true, but if I feel like if you're outdoors at like, if you're to be outside, you get that inspiration and it definitely translates
mhm.
um,
Well,
to that.
another big component of the benefit of nature is the concept of awe, which you get awe also from art. If you're
Yeah.
standing in a museum and you're looking at this incredible sculpture and you're just like in awe of it, you
Right.
awe of space and the stars, and awe of nature is really the easiest because there's so much,
Right.
whether it's the rainbow or going to see the Grand Canyon.
Yeah.
Translating that experience and capturing in art so that we can then continue to benefit emotionally
Hmm.
when we see that artwork, and what.
Right.
And
I was curious too. You have a quiz on your site for nature habits, and that was interesting to me because I'm like, what is a nature habit? I don't know what a nature habit is, so I'm going to ask her that. So, can you explain that a little bit more?
yeah, my mission is for people to add a nature habit to their life, because like we all kind of know we need a fitness habit and drink
Yeah,
water and even meditation. They say
I have one.
make you a balanced person, and nature something that. And I tell people, they're like a little intimidated because, oh, I don't have time to go for a hike, or I'm not at that level. But it's
Right.
weaving it into what you're already doing. So
Yeah.
an artist, instead of maybe being stuck inside in their studio all the time, can go outside like my daughter and, or, do a little bit
Right.
of air or just get a table outside. And just,
Yeah.
it's kind of like start with what you love and then expand it to add more nature too.
Mhm.
And it could be something simple with your family, like eating outdoors.
Yes. Yeah, we'll do that sometimes because that's easy enough, right? If I'm just like
Right.
make a picnic, you know, like that's an easy way to have an excuse to be outdoors for sure.
Yeah. And
Um,
if you have, live in a high rise building and you just have a little balcony, there's so much you can do out there. You can grow plants,
yes.
you can, take pictures from the balcony. I mean, it's really,
Mhm.
my whole thing was to meet people where they are and then to have them just kind of recognize and be mindful of like, okay, how can I add nature to my life? Because it's medicine, it
Yes.
helps us feel better. So why not?
It really does. And just being outdoors, like I was telling my husband just recently, we went to the beach. And it is funny because, and I'm sure you appreciate this because you're also in Florida. Sometimes just going to the beach,
Mm-hmm.
it just reset me. I don't know how to explain it, but it was just like nice to just sit. You know, of course, with kids, it's not going to be as peaceful. It's still an adventure. But, at least, you're able to sit for a minute and have the kids play and just be able to relax a bit, I guess, is the best way. But it definitely reset me when came back home. And I was like, that was great. I didn't realize how much I needed
Mm-hmm.
to be outdoors until I did that. And I was like, I need to do that more. I need to be out more.
Exactly. It all comes down to like science and genetics. Like that's what we are all like. It's an innate connection that we have. It's called biophilia. Like they study it, they figured it out. A lot of this was just sort of anecdotal. And what I loved diving into this area is that there's so much more research now proving, that nature is beneficial. And so just like we're animals at the end of the day, we crave it, it's beneficial, and we're living in such an artificially created world
Yes.
now that we have to make the effort to get back to.
Yeah, that is very true because, I'm constantly on my computer and my phone and my everything. And then every once in a while, it's just like, you just don't want to, you know, don't want it anymore. You just want to be done with it, that kind of thing. I did see that you also had this really cool, like 30-day
Oh yeah.
eco happiness challenge. Is that what it was? Eco happiness, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh,
And so I thought,
oh,
so,
like finished answering all about the quiz. So just to go back,
oh yeah.
the quiz is actually designed mostly for parents with kids.
Oh, okay.
But it's also fun. I mean, anyone could, I found it fun to do myself, but I wrote it like there's 10 questions, like things like, what is your kid's favorite after school activity or their favorite theme for their birthday party?
Mm,
And then you get, it's free and you get an automated email that gives you ideas. Like there's 5 categories. One of them is creative
okay.
arts. Another one's like outdoor adventure, mindfulness.
Okay.
So depending on how the answers come out, then you'll get these suggestions to get started with these, environment, nature activities, right? Based on,
Yeah, absolutely.
so that's fun too. And the calendar is about like 30-day calendar of different ideas for nature activities. And this came about, I love the backstory of this because from the pandemic, when the pandemic started,
Ah,
lockdown, and I was
yes.
like, what exactly, am I going to do for all this time? I mean, at first we thought it was a good
Yeah.
week and then 2 weeks. And, after a while I was like, okay. So I made
Yeah.
a challenge for myself. I did a 100-day, consistent day challenge on doing something to connect to nature. And,
Yeah.
on a rainy day, we did like a tour of Ireland on the computer.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. I mean, we did earth,
Yeah.
all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
With it. So from those 100 experiences, I boiled it down to 30 days, and it just gives people ideas that they can.
No, that's really, really wonderful because okay, so I have kind of like this is a two-part thing because I had watched a few other interviews that you had done, and two things to kind of go together. So with COVID happening, everyone started to get really bad cabin fever, right? They're like, oh my gosh, I'm home all the time. This is miserable. I'm lonely. I miss people. All of those complaints, right? And it tied together, and this is going to sound bitter, and I don't mean it bitter. This tied together so well with me with when I was struggling with postpartum depression after I had my kids.
Oh, yeah.
Because I went from being a working adult, right?
Mm,
Working mom. Well, not a mom, a working adult, right?
mm,
To stay at home mom,
mm,
to starting my own business. And so all of those things were happening when I had very small children.
mm,
And so for me, I had said to my friends, like, I felt like I couldn't go anywhere
mm.
because of breastfeeding and the kids are newborns. And, like it was a lot. I had a newborn and my kids are like 21 months apart. It's almost two
Oh,
years
wow.
apart. So I was, for a few years there, home
Yeah.
all the time. And so then suddenly COVID hits and all my friends are like, this is the worst. And I go, yeah, I've been telling you this has been the worst for a minute. And so I saw in one of your interviews you had mentioned, postpartum is really rough. And, like you need to be able to get yourself out of that. And I think I know this is away from artwork for a minute, but I just feel like more women need to talk about that kind of stuff because it was such a challenge with both children. Even with my second child, I thought, oh, I know what I'm getting into. It's going to be fine, whatever. It was still just as rough the second go, So anyway, I just feel like that's interesting that with COVID, it's like, oh, we got to get people out of the house, not lonely, not sad, not da da da. And I feel like it's like literally parallel
Right. And it
to postpartum.
can be an extrovert,
Am I an extrovert? I
or you
I
kind of us.
I feel like I'm very if I'm at a party, I will talk to people and yes, I'm extroverted,
Mm.
but I like to keep very introverted and get to know people usually first before I'm completely open with them. So I feel like I'm both.
You
I know that's not
get
very helpful.
exhausted after a social event?
I don't usually like going to parties.
Oh, okay.
I'm usually tired.
Well, I would
Yeah.
say that, my experience, frankly, with lockdown is I thrived because
Really?
being such an introvert, I just found it kind of exciting. I like being at home.
You like to retreat. Well, that's me. I'm very much a homebody. I'll go out and hang out with friends and things. I'm not like a complete hermit, but I'm hermit adjacent. Where I'm like, I don't need a lot of, I talk to my friend. This is the thing. It's very weird because I'm very social,
Mm,
but I also don't necessarily always want to go out all the time
yeah.
and be around a large group of people. Does that make sense? If it's like me and two friends,
Mm,
fantastic.
yeah.
If it's a party, I'm like, ugh.
And as moms and all of our responsibilities, but yeah, and for me, actually, I like to talk about that because, I had infertility, which for a long
Mm.
time was like a secret. And when I wrote the book, it was therapeutic to get that out. I wonder if there are people, no one's actually come to me and said, oh, I didn't know that about you. Like I thought, because, you put yourself out there and then people buy your book that and I'm shocked that no one's been like, oh, like you never said that. I mean, maybe yeah.
Right.
Um,
And it's one of those things where I feel like people are like still working through how do I word it? It's like they're worried if they bring it up, it might upset you or offend you or make you sad or me and my husband, it took us, I think it was over 2 years to have our first child, and I thought, wow, like is something wrong? Because you just think, oh, life's just gonna work, and it doesn't always work like that. And so I share I grew up with any struggle I had, keeping it very to myself. You don't talk about it. It's not a problem, blah, blah, blah. And as I got older, I started to share with people, and they're like, oh my gosh, me too. And I thought, why are we all struggling by ourselves?
yeah.
We don't need to be struggling by ourselves.
Well,
This is happening to all these people,
and I
you know?
idea that postpartum anxiety was a thing, and I really
Yeah,
didn't even know at the time that that's what was going on. And I was
yeah.
so like revved up and out of balance.
Mm.
That's when I
Oh, yeah,
started researching like how to feel better. And
yeah.
it wasn't it started more like just go for the walks, and it wasn't even
Mhm.
like totally the nature connection until years later, because I was studying like
Mm.
researching about mindfulness and gratitude practice.
Mm.
And then it's been really exciting to kind of take something like gratitude practice,
Yeah.
put in the environmental aspect to it,
Yeah.
and stepping back. And not only are you like in awe of nature and you're creating based on nature, but now let's like spend a few moments like actually being grateful for it,
Yes.
grateful for the
Mhm.
painting, and you know, it helps keep those positive hormones going and feeling.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because that's another thing too is, to go back to mindset.
Mm,
So many times, you'll think, oh, you'll second guess or you'll be worried or again, anxiety,
mm,
things like that.
mm,
And if you practice, you know, one of the best things I've heard is talk to yourself how you would your best friend,
mm-hmm.
right? So if your brain starts to tell you all the bad things, oh no, this isn't good enough. Oh no, this is terrible, or no one's gonna want this, or whatever it is, it's like, would you say that to your best friend if they were showing you something?
Right. And as a creator, we always face that.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, and the thing is, I don't like when people dismiss it, like
Mm,
just suppress all that. It's not that I don't think that's ever 100% going to go away. That's just my opinion. I have no like study or anything behind that, but it's like I think it's always going to be there, but it's just a good practice to kind of have either like you said a meditation or words of affirmation or however you want to word it, mantras. Everyone has kind of a different thing that works for them.
you know,
I think tapping is great. I don't know if you know about tapping at all.
I know
That
I tried it.
you've never tried tapping?
Not really, no. Do you
Oh, that I swear by it. It's the only thing that's ever prevented a panic attack for me.
really?
Yeah, I am telling you. So, and it's very weird. It's a weird, like, don't get me wrong, like I looked at it like,
Yeah.
but someone suggested it and I tried it and I went, holy smokes. And I think it just grounds you, it just
Mm.
like
Is it
calms you
do it
down.
when you're like feeling anxious, or do you do it like on a daily basis?
Do you want the honest answer?
Yeah. Yeah. Or what?
I should do it on a regular basis.
Like there.
I think that would be healthier for me.
Oh.
I do it when that awful feeling when you know you're gonna like your anxiety is kind of out of control.
Mm,
That's when I do it.
interesting.
So I'm just like, I need a minute. It has a free app, the tapping solution.
Mm,
I have it on my phone,
hmm.
and I'll play that and do like like they have a bunch of free ones you can do. You can buy stuff on there too, but there's some on there that I'm good with.
But you,
And
right, because it's kind of weird.
what now?
Can you have you ever done it in public or in front of anybody?
No,
Yeah, it's
no.
kind of weird. Yeah.
It's a little bit weird because you're literally tapping, you tap your head, you tap above your eye, you tap, there's certain spots that you go and they walk you through it in the meditation. They say tap. So obviously if you're in public and you're, tapping stuff, it's, that'd be kind of weird. But, in my house by myself, it's fine. But it's just, I like to share that with people because I know a lot of people struggle with anxiety and, they'll do medicine or whatever else other things that they have. And it's like, what else can we provide if
Hmm.
medication is not always the answer for everything? I'm not saying that this is a disclaimer.
Right.
Medicine can be a very helpful tool. Always talk to your doctor, that kind of stuff.
Right.
But if you're at wit's end and nothing else has worked, then try other things because you never know even if it's a little bit goofy.
Right.
If it
Yes.
works, it works.
About like essential oils and smelling
Mhm.
flowers, and because
Right.
any actually instead of the tapping, I have been advised, and not like instead of it, but
Mhm.
I had been advised, which is similar to the tapping concept, is like
Mhm.
using all your senses, because what you're
Oh, I've heard that too.
yeah, because what you're
Yeah.
describing is like a distraction, right?
Yes.
So that your mind doesn't, that it moves away from the worries. So you can do that through
Mhm.
senses too. And like I talk about, like even just going outside and feeling how many different natural textures,
Mhm.
the just go either
There's
water, the
there's a practice where it's like a certain number, isn't it? Where it's like look and see
yeah,
so many things and then
like
smell so many things and taste and
yeah.
I think I've heard about that before.
I could never remember it. So like let's say I get anxious or I'm like at my chair, I might just like
Yeah.
pick up the paper and feel this, feel my shirt. Like it,
Yeah.
it makes your brain start to focus on something else. So
Yes.
that is, it's the same, very similar to the tapping concept.
Yeah, yes. And I had tried that, but I felt like I was more stuck doing that because I'm like, I don't know, I just didn't feel as there's different things you can try for sure.
And
Um,
having you're actually using the point, I think like Chinese medicine type points that are known to be relaxing, right?
it might be a pressure point thing. I don't know because I didn't study it at all. I just found it and started to try it, and I thought, holy smokes, like I was
Wow.
really just built up, and I did that, and it asks you in the beginning like what's your stress level, and then at the end it says, uh,
Nope.
tell me what your stress level is now, and so I put it, and it wasn't perfect, but it definitely wasn't where I was, so I was like, wow, like I can go back to doing what I was doing and just remind myself like not to take on the whole world at one time in one moment and get ahead of myself, to just take a deep breath and you
Mhm.
know just get through it. You had mentioned too, not only being in nature, you talked about and this is something I wanted to ask you about. It was like symbols of nature, which I thought was interesting.
Oh yeah. Yeah, why don't let me just read them because it's kind of cool.
Right. I wrote a few down. It was seasons, trees, animals, things like that.
Yeah, this is really fun to some of them I like found and others I kind of like just knew like
Yeah.
just from experience. But so like seasonal changes in weather can correspond to seasons in our lives. For example,
Hmm.
talk about feeling cold and dark during winter time. And
Right.
and a lot of this is officially a parenting book, but a lot of people I've gotten feedback that says no, this is for everyone. So it is
Okay.
written in a bit of a way like how a parent would explain to a child or a teacher to a child, but it
Hmm.
all is for all of us. Um,
Gotcha.
so I mean that's like obvious. It may be more obvious to an older person and not a
Hmm.
child. Maybe have never heard that before, and it helps
Hmm.
express their emotions by thinking of that. But even
Gotcha.
us, or it may help us realize that when it is dark and cold, the emotions we have, how to accept them and how to maybe change them if
Mhm.
happy. So
Right.
waves, the ebb and flow of ocean waves can resemble our fluctuating emotions. I love that because I
Yeah.
stare at the ocean waves for hours.
I could too. Same.
Yeah. Oh, planting seeds. This metaphor
Mhm.
stimulate curiosity and to encourage people to work toward growth and progress. So we hear
Mhm.
about that a lot. And then the one I all the time from my husband, because he's a much more like balanced, level-headed, just naturally that way
Yeah.
than I am. And he's always like, I'm just a leaf floating on the stream, like just let it go and picture
I wish I could steal some of that. That's for sure. Yeah.
bother him.
Yeah. My husband's that way too, where he doesn't take stuff nearly as serious as me. So it's good. It's good balancing me out because I'll be like, ah, and he'll be like, it's fine. I'm like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, very. And we touched base a little bit too on, you know, getting inspiration from different sounds in nature as well. It doesn't necessarily have to be, you don't have to necessarily be outside. You can also be like, sometimes I'll put on music or I'll put on,
Hmm.
you can find easily on YouTube different ambient sounds or music or stuff like that that's inspired by nature. And that's supposed to help you as well, from what I could see.
Yeah, and that's interesting. I looked at it, I researched it from like the calming standpoint, but there's a
Mhm.
whole other level as far as creativity because
Yeah.
some people, for example, can't write or can't create art without that kind of, certain music. Or think of doctors who,
Oh, that's true. Yeah, yeah. Oh, I worked with physicians before and they would do surgery and they'd have a playlist
yeah,
and it would help them focus when they were doing surgery. And I always thought that was interesting.
yeah. And I'm the complete opposite. Like I must have silence when I write. And
Oh, interesting.
yeah, and a lot of times I'm reading, whispering or reading words back to myself. And
Oh, yeah, that's true. If you're trying to focus. See, I found I can't listen to music that has words in it because I will sing and dance. So it'll distract me. But if I listen to classical music or any kind of music without words, that helps me really focus in on what I'm doing. So that is interesting,
one
depending on you.
favorite kind of feelings from music that I do not utilize as much, and I should, is so I was like in DC, like when I had winters back then
Mhm.
in college, and we walk around like Georgetown, and there was I remember the Barnes and Noble would always be playing jazz music, or like you would walk into a cooking store, they always had the jazz music, And there was a lot more live jazz either back then or in DC. I don't know if it's like still like that, but I don't
Yeah.
get that as much in Florida.
Yeah.
But anyway, the idea of like cooking with jazz music, you know, like in the background it gives me such like this feeling. And so, you know, all I guess a big point I want to make too is, you know, whether it's tapping or music, you know,
Yeah.
about finding what works. And, you know,
Yes.
part of like my goal with the book was to kind of like make it a handbook. Like there's so many
Yeah.
options in there. It's not meant to be like, do all of this because,
Yeah.
you know, it's like, try it, figure out what works and, make it a habit because
Yeah.
it really it can help us.
But I think it's also important to tell people not to get discouraged when things don't work,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Because a big part of any kind of anything,
Uh-huh.
of finding yourself, finding who you are, whether, especially creative, if you're being a creative person and you're trying to find, what makes you happy, what style makes you, whatever it is,
Right.
if you try things and it doesn't work, that doesn't mean, oh, it's a failure and I need to stop and never do this again. It might mean try it one more time or try something different and see, you just keep trying until you get to something that you're like, oh my gosh, where has this been this whole time? Where has this been my whole life?
That's, I mean, you know, great example is yoga. You know, I always hear these great stories of everyone like that's how they find balance in their life. And I've tried yoga a lot, different classes, all depends on the teacher.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
actually more anxious in yoga class at times,
Mhm.
like it just wasn't for me. Sometimes I've had great experiences. I don't like how long a lot of them are. Like I would be
Yeah.
with a 30-minute yoga class.
Yeah.
One time did one and ended up my neck couldn't move for 2 weeks. You know, like so, you know, but
You threw something out instead. You're like, cool, thanks, yoga.
and yoga, like I want it included. It's and there are, you know, there's like I love doing standing outside and doing tree pose, right? Like that's to me invigorating and calming.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. But you know, or I try to make a habit of sitting and just meditating and thinking about nothing
Yeah.
for minutes and like that kind of didn't stick because in the morning I'm too tired and at night if I do it in my bed I'll just fall asleep.
Yeah.
I'm better with walking meditation.
Yeah.
Whether it's in the neighborhood or have you ever done a labyrinth walking meditation?
I don't even know what that is. No.
Okay, a labyrinth is basically it looks like a maze.
Yeah. Yeah. I know what a labyrinth is. I just don't know what a labyrinth meditation is. I have no idea
Oh,
what that is.
well,
Yeah.
it's really just walking slowly and calmly and in a relaxed way. I mean, meditatively, like mindfully. Like it doesn't have to necessarily be a specific thing you do, but it's
Gotcha.
that idea that you're like weaving in and out and you just there's not like it's not like a maze where you have to work your way out, you know,
Okay.
sort of naturally go. You can
So, well, like wandering.
yeah, yeah, and you're
Yeah.
wandering this path and you like go into the center and then like you can I mean you can make it as you wish. I did
Right.
powerful experiences where I go in there with like my whatever's bothering me and then I kind of like leave it behind. Like you can take a rock in and then just like
Oh, cool.
rock and then as you walk out you're like goodbye to that worry or goodbye to that.
Oh, interesting. So wait, is this an actual physical place that you can go do this, or is this you can go to a park or anywhere and just kind of make it your own?
Okay, so the labyrinth is like it's a pre-made design
So yeah, so that's my
like
question. As I was like, I wasn't quite sure I followed. I'm like, is this a actual labyrinth you're going in? Okay, cool.
yeah,
Gotcha. Yeah.
a lot of times you would be surprised there's probably in your area and you didn't even know like you can there's just Google like labyrinth finder and then you can look them up and a lot of churches have them or communities.
That's crazy. Yeah, I wouldn't even have thought to do that. So I'm sure because there's enough like parks and things around, you would think that I'm sure somebody has made something cool you can kind of navigate through. Awesome. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah,
That's very cool.
so like you know again like that's really random kind of you know like the tapping and then where it's like I find it powerful but
Right.
someone else loves yoga every Saturday morning so
Right. Yeah. And it is important, just to try to what I liked most about what you're showing on your website and what you're showing in your books and things like that is that, options.
Yes.
You know, it's not a one way fits all type situation, which is true for everybody. So it's nice to see something that's like, hey, try stuff, you know, that works for you, helps you with your stress levels, helps you find happiness, helps you get inspired and things like that. Because, you know, especially like with artists, you get artistic, you know, art block.
Mhm.
You don't necessarily writer's block. I'm sure you've experienced that where you're like, there's just the today is not the day. Like it's just not working today. And it just would it helps to have different choices to help kind of break out of a funk or break out of a block. So that I liked a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. It's great.
So before I wrap up, I did want to ask you, is there something that if you could suggest anything,
Mm.
what could somebody try today or do today that would be really simple that they could try to use with nature and mental health in mind?
I think the best thing you can do to get started is to really like look around where you live, you know, no
Mhm.
matter where it is.
Mhm.
You know, I didn't want this to be just for people who have giant backyards or live on a
Right.
farm because
Yeah.
um,
That'd be convenient.
yeah, I mean, and live in a high rise and you don't have a balcony. Start
Mhm.
to think about where could you walk, you know? So most urban environments have so many parks, you know,
Yeah.
and zoos or botanical gardens, you know, a lot of it's free and open to the public.
Yeah.
See what you can do that's like easy to get to, that you could spend just a few minutes.
Mhm.
And the research tells us too, it's about 20 minutes a day is really what they found. And doing it kind of consistently, like it's, you know, same thing with any habit. If you, yeah, you could
Right.
go on some 3 hour hike every Sunday, but if you just sit in your room the rest of the week, it's not going to be as beneficial
It omits it.
as
It said it omits it. It's like, no, doesn't count. 20 minutes a day. Or, yeah.
it's kind of, you know, weaving it your everyday experience. But yeah, to kind of open your eyes to what you already have access to, and literally
Right.
turning and looking out the window and doing that, getting up and going to the balcony, to the window, taking a break, eating
Yes.
outside, taking your laptop outside. So those simple tweaks that could really make a difference.
Absolutely. And 20 minutes is completely doable.
Yeah.
Everyone's always like, I don't have time. And I'm guilty of that too. So no judgment. But everyone's like, I don't have time to do all the things.
Yeah.
20 minutes we can do. You know, that's what?
It's less than a TV show, and it's less than probably the amount you scroll on social media.
Oh, 100%. 100% true. And was there anything else that you wanted to share? I'm going to tag all your information if anyone wants to follow you or contact you or anything like that. But was there anything else that I missed or that you wanted to share before I wrap up?
No, I just encourage everyone to go to ecohappinessproject.com, and you know, there's tons of blog posts, a lot on art, you know, specifically, but other topics as well. And if
Mhm.
you have any other ideas of new, you know, information you want to read about, let me know. And actually, I did want to mention something really cool. I am working on, you know, I also, you know, write other articles.
Yes.
You know, as a journalist, and I'm working on an article about Oshibana.
Okay.
Are you familiar with Oshibana art? Okay, so it's like pressed
No.
flower art essentially, but
Okay.
it's the Japanese version.
Oh, is it the flower arranging?
Not arranging, like pressing. Actually, I have to show this if you have.
Yeah, show me, show me.
So,
Oh, wow.
so this is my Oshibana I did this summer at a
Oh, very cool.
really cool place. One of my favorite places called Lodge at Woodlock, and it's like
Okay.
you know, kind of place, but they have a lot of nature and a lot of art. It's like I think all of your art all your art community would love it because I mean how many vacation places you go where you are incorporating art classes into your vacation? Like it's amazing.
Right,
And
right.
so this nature art class, and you press the flowers and the petals, and I mean there's what else do they have here? I mean leaves, I mean, this is really cool.
No, that's really fun.
Yeah.
And so you do it while you're there, and then they just how
Well,
how
So
long does that take to do?
so they pressed everything, and then we just glued
Okay.
it on. Uh,
Okay, that was my question. I was like, wait a minute, how long does that take to dry? Okay, that makes sense. I'm on
so,
board. All
yeah,
right.
so from that experience, I'm now writing and doing research and working on an article for Mother
Okay.
Earth News about Oshabana and how it's like relaxing and calming and why more people should.
Cool.
And I actually learned
Yeah.
that there's a press that you can, so instead of having to press it for weeks and, it's a very cumbersome
Yeah.
process, there's some, it's called microfloor, and it's all done like in your
Okay.
microwave. And so you can actually press these flowers within minutes, and then you can create art with them.
What?
Yeah.
I've never heard of any of this. See, now I don't want to sound silly right now, but sticking flowers in a microwave just sounds like a fire. I would just be like, I'm gonna set my house on fire. This is not calming at all. No, that's interesting though. So they must have some kind of way.
Yeah. Yeah. And I
Yeah.
haven't dug into that exact, but the artists I spoke to this week, they said it like transformed their process because now they don't have to wait as long.
Cool.
But it's
Yeah.
anyway, and then they talked about just how incredible there's all this research about flowers in particular and how flowers are so calming. So by working with flowers and then looking at flowers and creating with them, that it's alone is so calming. So I just thought that was really,
That's really cool.
yeah.
That's really cool because so like anytime my friend Brittany, and I think she's watching. Hi, Brittany. She always, I joke with her because she's always like, I don't like getting flowers because they always die. And then I feel bad, like, what's the point? And so I feel like anytime I've gotten flowers, I'll either take petals and you put them in books and if you smush them, they'll flatten them. So I've done that before, or I'll hang them to dry and let them dry and at least enjoy them that way. Hey, Brittany, she's waved in the comments. And so yeah, it's one of those where Brittany, maybe next time you get some flowers and you're sad about it, you could just repurpose the flowers that, press them and make something beautiful with it.
They, and sure, they make, all kinds of animals, all kinds of pictures. This one woman, she'll make bookmarks and
Yeah.
cards. And the other thing, what was I going to say? Oh, the other thing a lot of them do as an additional business is they take wedding bouquets.
Right.
Brides are done, and then they
Yes.
create them into like a flat. They press them into a flat, drying them, but it's like flat, and then they frame it, and then they have it on their wall forever. Which I'm like, oh, I wish I knew that. That would have been really cool.
Right. I've seen people take their flowers and do resin and like put their flowers in resin, but I haven't seen them press them before. That's a new one. So that's very interesting. I'm going to message you after this to have you spell out that Japanese word for me so I can look it up because that's very interesting. It's nice to see artwork that is using resources that we already have.
Yeah.
And so like I've seen people do artwork where they repurpose like cloth or like material that would have otherwise got thrown away or things like that. So it's very cool to learn more about, I guess,
Recycle.
environmentally friendly, recycled art. There's another guy that I know, he does cosplay with recyclable items. Instead of buying all the new plastic and things, he'll just take stuff that already exists and turns it into cosplay, which I'm like, how smart is that? He goes, it's a lot cheaper this way too. So
I met a guy and interviewed him. He would do beach cleanups and collect all this crazy stuff at the beach and then make art from it. It was unbelievable.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's really impressive. People are so creative. At the end of the day, you see people do things, you're like, wow, that's a really good idea.
Right.
So,
yeah.
all right, very cool. Well, I've had a really lovely time talking with you. It's been very, very cool. I love talking about this type of stuff because I think it applies to everybody, So I very much appreciate that you met with me today.
Thank you. This is great. And I stayed up for it and everything.
Oh, I appreciate you. I know it's late. I'll let you go. But yeah, I thank you all, everyone that's been watching. I very much appreciate you. And I will be tagging all of Sandi's information. So if you want to check her out, her page. And yeah, that's it. Oh, and if you want any landscape paintings, go to Crafter. We have beautiful artists that can make fantastic nature-related artwork for you. All right. You guys all have a good day. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
You're welcome.